What is going on, everybody? Today we're looking at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Wave 22 figures. So in this wave, we've got Batman from the Western world. So this was from the Batman vs. Superman Archive of Worlds, so kind of where they went to a Western world, and Batman gets this outfit design. So cool just to have a cowboy version of Batman. And then we also have Hal Jordan in the armor suit, which looks pretty cool. So he has this armor. It's pretty much just Steel's armor, and he has Steel's hammer and stuff. So that's part of the Return of Superman storyline where he kind of forms that armor to help fight against Mongols. So those are cool. And speaking of Return of Superman, or we also have the Death and Reign and Return of Superman storylines, we get Eradicator and Cyborg Superman, which both play a big part in that storyline, as well as some of the additional Superman that appear after Superman's death. So both of these look cool. So we get our basic design of Eradicator that looks pretty cool, and Cyborg Superman as well. Of course, we've had, I think, more modern designs of them, but the nice classic ones to go from those storylines. So awesome to have those in the collection as well. So 4 cool figures here to look at today that I'm excited to check out. So let me get them open out of the box and we'll take a look at them together. Well, let's start off with the Western World Batman, which was from Batman/Superman Archive of Worlds, where being known as Arturio was an ancient god of tales that was no longer worshipped by mankind, so he created the Archive of Worlds to create a perfect world. Batman and Superman discover the archive and investigate it, traveling to different worlds based on different genres of old Hollywood films, including the Desert of Doom, which resembles the American Old West. So that's why we get Batman here, so they kind of dressed up as cowboys, as you'll see in the picture. So pretty cool for this Batman. Now they did pretty much just take the Jonah Hex that we've already had before, and I'll show you that, and just kind of redo it for Batman. So gave him, of course, this nice jacket on over the top, so this dust or whatever, but it's in this nice, like, I can't tell if it's black, it looks like dark blue, so it may be just a dark blue color. So nice duster, of course, in this fake leather material, but feels pretty nice with the fabric and everything. And underneath it just got the same Jonah Hex outfit. So of course we get the bat on the chest. It's in the gray colors now with some black detailings. Get a belt on his waist with the bat logo, and again the same pants and shirt designs. All that's just used over from Jonah Hex, even down to the boots with the black boots there. He's got some gloves on his hands. There's just some black gloves, and then we of course get the Batman cowl. So he still has the cowl and neck piece going down, so hiding the identity of Bruce Wayne there, with a cowboy hat on that I think is just a reuse. Once again, they kind of retooled it with the design here around, so like this band around the head, but the hat, everything else looks about the same, again in that dark blue color that sort of matches with the jacket there. So overall I think it looks pretty cool. Nice design overall for Batman. Of course, definitely not necessary, but it's just a fun design to have Batman in a cowboy outfit. But movement-wise, the head will twist all the way around. Can look down that far and up that far. So pretty decent movements in the head there. We'll get the shoulders that come up, and of course I just left the jacket on, but we'll get the butterfly joint as usual, and it'll rotate around within there. We get the double elbow joint that of course can bend all the way up on itself. Pretty much typical for that. Wrist will twist all the way around and flex on the ball joint. Feels like back and forth there. Then we get the ab crunch, so we get the up ab crunch that'll crunch back and forth and twist around. Get the waist crunch and twist around. Then down to the hips that'll come up that far, pretty much to 90 and out to the side. We do get the thigh twist, so since this is reusing the Jonah Hex, we do get the thigh twist that'll twist around there. The double knee joint that'll bend up towards the back, if we can get it bend all the way up there, pretty much kicking himself in the butt. Then down to the foot that'll rock back and forth. Of course, with this like little design around, you don't really get much movement, just a little back and forth, and twist side to side with the toe joint on the end. So pretty decent for Batman, and movement wise, pretty typical for the McFarlanes. A little bit different because it does have like the thigh twist and everything there, but everything else is about the same as all the other McFarlane figures. Now, accessory-wise, the only thing he comes with, unfortunately, is a batarang. It'd be cool if he come with a gun, but it's Batman. He doesn't use guns, so we don't get that, even though he has double trigger fingers for that, so probably just reusing those Jonah Hex hands that are painted black this time, but we can put just the batarang in his hand there holding that, so you get that option, and of course he comes with the base as well. We'll put him on. Now, speaking of put him on the base, you could also put him on a horse. So, of course, we have had horses in the past. So, like I mentioned, Jonah Hex, and I'll show you it here in a second. We have had a horse in the past. So, like I said, we've had the Jonah Hex horse. So, you'd easily take this Batman, just put it on the Jonah Hex horse there. Or we've had a horse for Batman already with the Dark Knight Returns set. We got the horse as well. So, we get the all-black horse, which I feel would fit pretty good with Batman. So, you could put Batman on this horse as well. So, you could do either of those. Of course, as we've seen with these past horse figures, the characters don't really sit on them too well. So, I'm not going to put him on it because, like I said, it doesn't look good, so I'll probably just leave him standing. But just know with those horses that McFarlane has made, you can put him on a horse if you want. And as I mentioned, the Jonah Hex, so here's our Jonah Hex figure. And as I said, if you look at the outfits, it's going to be exactly the same, just complete reuse between the two figures, just obviously recolored for Batman now to go along with the storyline. So still looks cool there. And we'll bring in his card as well. So there's a picture of him and Superman, so they're both having the Western style outfits. And of course there's Batman on a darker color horse. Like I said, it could be good with that black colored horse, and you see what Batman looks like there. And of course we'll read the story on the back, which is: to thwart the apocalypse cascading across multiple realities, Batman and Superman must join forces with their counterparts and sojourn the strange lands. The world of the night and the world of tomorrow are not only two creations created by the sinister Arturio, and this nefarious cybernetic despot is hellbent on the last crafting of his own twisted notion of utopia. So there's a little more explanation of what I told you about earlier. So like I said, definitely not a necessary figure with this Batman, but I think he does look pretty cool. Just love the Western design. I wouldn't be surprised now if we get the Superman one as well to go along with it. But like I said, nice to have this Batman, and we could easily put him on any of those horses if you want to make it more Western especially, but just a nice design for the Western Batman. And then we have Hal Jordan in his armor suit. Now, besides that Batman, pretty much every figure from this can go from the Return of Superman, so they could all be labeled as that or go part of that Death and Return of Superman storyline sort of thing. So we get Hal Jordan here from the Green Lantern number 46 from October 1993, in which we see Hal Jordan fighting Mongol in Engine City, and Mongol injures him, so Hal uses his powering to make a suit of armor and defeats Mongol using Steel's hammer. So this is cool. So it's pretty much a reuse of Steel, so he does form a suit, based off Steel, so he looks exactly like Steel, but it's Hal Jordan inside instead of John Henry Irons. So he gets this suit made out of constructs, so that's why it's all green here, and does look pretty decent. Of course, I always see this, like, ever since I've seen this figure, just reminds me of a lot of things with the colors and stuff, but the green looks cool. So we get the face of Hal Jordan there, which looks cool, so we get the domino mask and see some of his face and all that. And then, like I said, the rest of it is pretty much just Steel reused. Of course, it can't be perfect, so like we get a different helmet, so he has this helmet design on here, and then we get the chest plate. We have the S on the chest of the Steel, but not on this one. Love the little shading design with the darker green they put on through it as well. That makes it looks cool, but the rest of it is just complete reuse of Steel. Oh, the forearm gauntlets are different as well. That is something different, but everything else does look like reuse from Steel, but it looks pretty cool. Like I said, in the green colors just makes it stand out quite a bit. But moon-wise, the head will twist all the way around. You can look down that far and up that far, so not a whole lot of range, unfortunately. Shoulders up to 90 with the butterfly and rotate all the way around. Get the bicep twist and the double elbow joint that can bend up that far on itself. Wrist will twist all the way around and flex on the ball joint. So there it is, back and forth. We hit the upper ab crunch, so back and forth there a little and twist pretty much nothing. And then at the waist, we crunch back and forth a little and can twist all the way around there. Then we go down to the hips. That'll come up that far. Again, not all the way up to 90, but not far. Hips out to the splits. Thigh twist up in there. The double knee joint. That'll bend up that far to the back. Can't get any closer than that. Down to the foot. That'll rock back and forth. Again, with the design, you don't get a whole lot of range, so just back and forth there. And we'll twist side to side just a little with the toe joint on the end. So not bad for him. And of course, back with Steel, it wasn't the best, like with movements and everything, especially trying to get them to stand up, because it always, like, their feet are kind of curved or whatever, so it always makes them harder to stand up. Don't have too many issues with him though, but of course if we did, we can put him on the base just to keep him steady. And as I mentioned, him defeating Mongol, and like Steel, we get Steel's kinetic hammer, so that's pretty cool. We get this, so nice design for that. We can try and put this in his hand. So there we can have Hal Jordan in the armor now with Steel's hammer there ready to kick Mongol's butt. So that looks pretty cool. Nice having that design. And of course, speaking of Steel, we have our Steel figure. So that's what he looks like. Again, pretty much reusing most of the body. Like I said, switching out that chest plate. Of course, no cape or anything, different arm pieces, but everything else is pretty much the same. And of course, has that same hammer design there as well. And we get his cards. There's a nice picture of him. Of course, doesn't look exactly like what we have, but not far off from Superman, the Return of Superman. And on the back, we get the story of Hal Jordan, which says Hal Jordan evades missiles and enters Engine City. He tackles Mongol as a defeated Superman and Supergirl look on. Mongol gains the upper hand, injuring Hal's knee and arm, taunting him as this powering has no effect on anything yellow. Hal fights the pain and uses his ring to make a suit of armor. He then hits Mongol with John Henry Irons' hammer. Hal meets up with Superboy, Supergirl, and John Henry Irons. They break through a heavy door and find Superman battling with Cyborg Superman. They choose not to intervene and they watch Superman defeat Cyborg. After the battle, Hal contemplates using his ring to bring Coast City back. So there's very in-depth story details on what went on there. So nice to have that explanation, more of what's going on with Hal defeating Mongol there, part of the Return of Superman storyline. So once again, a very cool figure. Definitely not necessary, but I do like having Hal Jordan in the suit. Just makes it look pretty cool. And then using Steel's armor and hammer and everything makes it look pretty cool. So overall, not bad for the figure design. Obviously, the figure itself could be improved just like Steel could, but it looks pretty cool with the all green design. And next up, we have Eradicator, also from the Return of Superman storyline. He was an ancient Kryptonian weapon created by Kim-El to prevent aliens from influencing Kryptonian culture. But when Superman died, Eradicator returned to take over Superman's body and preserve Kryptonian's heritage. He wasn't able to possess the body, so he ended up creating a clone body of Superman, which was imperfect, with him having to wear special shades to protect his eyes, and he donned his own version of Superman's outfit. And of course, with this, he has all the same powers as Superman, but he can also project energy from his eyes and hands. So he looks pretty cool here. Nice design, of course, more along the lines of the classic Return of Superman look for Eradicator, because we've already had Eradicator before. I don't really know what that is, but I'll show it to you. But it looks pretty good for him. So again, he has the look of Superman, so he should look exactly like Superman, so with the face and everything. Of course, he has the glasses on, so you can't really tell, but like I said, it helps protect his eyes. But it still has the Superman black hair with the little curl in front with blue highlights. All that looks good for him. And then we get his outfit. So he has the S on his chest. Of course, the red cape hanging off the back. So get this nice big cape. We've seen this design before, but it's all dirty and stuff now. So that's pretty nice. And then we get the blue down the center. So from the neck all the way down to the feet with black on the sides of that. So down each arm and the sides of the legs there as well. So it looks pretty decent overall for Eradicator. Now, of course, there's the issue with this where it looks like his head is sitting down too far on the neck, but I think people will come up with a way to fix that by replacing the joint piece in there. But yeah, it just looks like it's sitting down too far, almost like he doesn't have a neck at all. Now, moon-wise, the head will twist around, so twist all the way around, look down that far and up that far. So again, not a whole lot of range. You have very little range in the head there at all. The shoulders will come up to 90, of course, with the butterfly. That moves a little back and forth and will rotate around. Get the bicep twist and the double elbow joint. Bends all the way up on itself there. Get the wrist that'll twist all the way around and flex back and forth. Get the upper ab crunch and twist all the way around. And then we get the waist crunch and twist around. Then we go down to the hips up to 90 and out to the side to the splits. A little bit of a thigh twist up in there. The double knee joint that'll bend up that far to the back. And then down to the foot that'll rock back and forth and twist side to side with the toe joint on the end. So decent movements, your standard McFarlane's there, so nothing surprising at all with that. And overall looks and works out pretty good. Like I said, nice to have the good version for the old 90s Return to Superman version of Eradicator now. Accessory wise, he just comes with some additional hands, so if you want to have some more like grip hands or whatever, but for this, the fist hands are fine enough. And of course, we had a stand to put him on, so that'll keep him standing there. Like I said, we have had Eradicator before, so again, whatever this version was, I don't remember what it was at all, but just more blacked out version and darker blues and everything, but this version of Eradicator. So now we have, like I said, the more normal version here. And then we get his card, so there's a nice picture of him from Return of Superman. Of course, that looks more modern, but, you know, still relatively the same look, showing the powers he can shoot out of his hands now as well. And then we get his story there on the back, which says that Kryptonian AI, the Eradicator, eliminated contaminating alien influences. On Earth, it built a fortress of solitude before trying to convert the planet into New Krypton. It took Superman's form after Doomsday killed him, and on his resurrection, melded with Star Labs scientist David Connors. There's a little more explanation there for that. And overall, pretty nice look. Like I said, besides the neck looking all weird, this is a good Eradicator now to use for Return to Superman. And that brings us to our last figure of Cyborg Superman, who is Hank Henshaw. He was a member of LexCorp's Team Excalibur space shuttle that crashed, and the team was exposed to cosmic radiation. It's pretty much the exact same story as the Fantastic Four, and Hank Henshaw would have been the Mr. Fantastic. It was believed that Hank had died, but his consciousness was transferred into LexCorp's mainframe, and able to control technology, he created a robotic body. He then left Earth to learn about various worlds, and believing Superman caused the death of his crew, he plotted to get his revenge. After Superman's death, though, he constructed a new cybernetic body identical to Superman's and returned to Earth to destroy Superman's reputation. So he has all the same powers as Superman once again, but he's a being of energy that can transfer between machines and has technomorphing abilities. So it looks pretty good for this version of Cyborg Superman. Of course, we've had the more modern version I'll show you here in a second, but again, for the Return of Superman 90s version, this looks really good. So we do get Superman's mostly main body, so we get his face there, Clark Kent. Then you see like his neck on this side, the main body here. So we get the blue and red and everything, S on his chest, red cape on the back. That's nice fabric cape here with a bindi wire in it, but blue down on the left side here. You still get his red underwear and yellow belt, and then the blue continues down the right with the red boots on the bottom, and then we get the cybernetic pieces everywhere else. All the cyborg like body with silver. So here for the left leg is all that pretty much up to the thigh, and then his whole right arm is cybernetic piece. So it just looks so good with the way, and then coming up his head and over from the right to left with even a weird eye in there. So just looks really cool for this design. Like I said, this is a much better version of Cyborg Superman and more what I would prefer for him. Now, moon-wise, the head will twist around, so twist all the way around there, look down that far and up that far. So pretty good, not too bad. Obviously not the best, especially for Superman or flying character. Can't look up, but better movements than some figures had. Get the shoulders up to 90 with the butterfly and rotate around. Get the double elbow joint that bends all the way up on itself, and the wrist twist around and flex on the ball joint back and forth. Then we get the ab crunches, so the upper crunch that crunches just a little bit and will twist around, and then of course at the waist crunch and twist around. Then we go down to the hips up to 90 and out to the side. He can do the splits, get a little bit of thigh twist up in there, the double knee joint that'll bend up that far to the back, and down to the foot that'll rock back and forth, twist side to side, and has the toe joint on the end. So nice design overall, good movements, everything for the standard McFarlane, so nothing out of the ordinary there. So such a nice design for that. For accessories, we do get some additional hands. So for the right, we get this more pointing finger hand with the cybernetic pieces and a fist for the left. So again, just different options there depending on what you want, and comes with the base as well. We'll put him on. So that gives us our Cyborg Superman now. Of course, we had, like I said, the more modern version design of it. So we had this version of Cyborg Superman, which is definitely a lot more cyborg and weird looking. So I definitely prefer this one because I like this design much more and what I always think of Cyborg Superman looking like. And then we get a card for him where he's now labeled as Revenge of the Green Lanterns. But for me, I just went off the storyline from The Return of Superman. But then we get his story on the back, which I like how has debuts in Adventures of Superman 465 from April 1990. But for story-wise, it says astronaut Hank Henshaw was aboard the LexCorp space shuttle Excalibur with his wife Terry and 2 other crew members when it crashed. At first, the accident was thought to have been caused by Superman, who had created a solar flare, exposing the crew to a fatal dose of radiation. With his body deteriorating, Hank transferred his consciousness into LexCorp's mainframe, creating himself as Cyborg in Superman's image. When Terry later died, a deranged Hank blamed Superman for her death and became one of the Man of Steel's fiercest foes. With Mongol, he orchestrated the obliteration of Coast City and became an intergalactic threat battling the Green Lantern Corps. So there's a better explanation there for that. But what's really cool now that we have this version of Cyborg Superman is that we now have all the versions of Superman that came around during the death of Superman. So let's go and bring those in. So there's our 4 Superman. So of course from today we got Cyborg, Superman, and Eradicator. And then we also have Steel and Superboy, which we're getting a new Superboy that actually fit more in this. But there we have our 4 Superman that came about during the death of Superman. So really nice to have those continue to build out, especially with this version of Eradicator and Cyborg Superman to fill in that space. And like I said, now we just need the proper Superboy. So because of this, really nice to add that Cyborg Superman to our collection. Well, that's going to be it for our DC Multiverse Wave 22 figures, where we got the Western World Batman, Hal Jordan in the armor suit, Eradicator, and Cyborg Superman. So all 4 of these figures are pretty cool. I love especially Cyborg Superman and Eradicator, again, going for the Return to Superman storyline. The Cowboy Batman is pretty cool just because that Batman as a cowboy is awesome, but figure-wise, you don't really need it. It's not a necessary addition to the collection. And the Hal Jordan is pretty awesome. I like him in his big armor. Again, not necessary, but pretty cool and goes along with the Return to Superman storyline and all that as well. So fits in nice with that. So let me know what you thought of these 4 figures down in the comments. And if you enjoyed my review, let me know what that like. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button to see more. But I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you all stay awesome out there, and I'll see you in our next review.